This week on the special edition of Keeping It Real with FilmGordon, it's Labor Day weekend, and it's time for our fall movie preview. Wilson Morales of BlackFilmandTV.com, as well as Charles Kirkland, will join us as we look at all the potential award contenders that are creating buzz at the major festivals, whether it's Telluride, Venice, or TIFF. Plus, we'll review this week's new releases, Shang Chi, The Legend of the Ten Rings, and Cinderella. We'll have all that and more on episode 470, Keeping It Real with FilmGordon. Let's go. All right, and welcome to the latest episode of Keeping It Real with FilmGordon. I am Tim Gordon. It is the end of the summer. Well, unofficially, but, you know, on our calendars, it's Labor Day weekend. Charles Kirkland, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing well today. Thank you for having me.
All right, and Wilson Morales, how are you, sir?
I'm good.
Oh, that was short and sweet and to the point. All right, so that's a rule.
That's what you asked for. You said you didn't want long diatribe.
You know, we got a lot of show to do today, so without any further ado, I'm just going to throw it right to Wilson, man. Wilson, what's going on this week in entertainment so we can knock that out and get to our preview and reviews?
Well, you got a number of things. The big one in its theaters, only in theaters, is Marvel's Shang Chi and the Ten Rings. Very highly anticipated, very Asian cast. You know, Simu Liu Yi, I believe. I could be pronouncing his name wrong, my mistake. You know, he's the lead. And it's interesting new Marvel take, you know, as they go into, I don't know if this is phase 3 or 4 or so forth, you know. That is the big one in theaters that I'm aware of. You know, on streaming platforms, you have Cinderella, which was supposed to be hit in theaters, but they decided to go straight to Hulu. You know, Billy Porter plays the one of the roles in the role without giving it away.
Fairy godmother.
The fairy godmother in the movie.
Fabulous godmother.
You know?
Oh, is that what they call the fabulous godmother?
The fabulous godmother, you know. But there's a lot of stuff that played, you know, throughout the week that if people needed something to catch up during the week, you know, you've got on Showtime, Bitching, The Sound and Fury of Rick James, you know, which is now, it's a good documentary centering around Rick James, and I'm sure Tim will tell you down the road, if not today, about it, who Rick James is. You've got, there's a movie, a small independent film called Hands Up, starring Leroy Hawkins and Jamal Willard, who played Biggie in the Biggie movie. You know, police brutality, that type of story that's centering out of Chicago. And then you've got like a lot of like season finales, season starters. You know, you got the return of Billions. You know, I say that because I like that show, you know, which is episode 7 and 8 on Showtime. You know, Disney has a short film called Doug Days. The reason I mentioned that because it features the last vocal performance of the late Ed Asner. You know, so he's reprising the character that he did in the Oscar-winning film Up, Carl. So it's a treat for people to see, for kids, you know. And you know, Ed Asner was a legend in the theater, in the TV world. And that's about it. You know, it's not much because it's Labor Day weekend. Usually on Labor Day weekend, things get to be slow because they know people are going to be away. You know, if the weather permits, they're going to be doing barbecues. So not a lot of people go out to the movies or go out in general. And if they do, they travel to be, you know, with families and a little bit of solitude. And it's that time to play catch up before the heart of the fall season begins, whether it be theater, movies, or TV.
All right. Well, I mean, that's a good capture, man. I mean, you're absolutely right. I think as we're about to kind of shift to the fall movie preview, I think this is a really interesting look because this is the first one of these that we've done in 2 years. Like the last one was in 2019. We didn't really do a fall movie preview last year because stuff was moving off the calendar. And this week earlier, Wilson didn't talk about, Tom Cruise had both of his projects. One, which was supposed to be coming out in November, Top Gun Maverick, was moved into 2022. I think Mission Impossible, which I think was a February release, was moved further into the 2022 calendar. So I'm not sure if we're going to see any other films that are moved because, you know, we are in a reactionary business. When one studio or one production company sees something happening, people potentially will do the same thing. We don't know. So we're going to go through some of the films because Telluride is going on right now and Venice is going on right now. TIFF, I think, starts later this week. Am I correct, Wilson, on Thursday?
Yes, usually the Thursday after Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, so it starts later. By the time we're on the air next week, TIFF will be in full swing. So starting to get some buzz. Wilson sent me a text this morning along with our folks from the Black Reel Awards sent me some texts about reviews coming out of Telluride and in Venice. You know, this is literally the beginning of the award season, man. You know, in a month, Wilson, you'll be at is the New York Film Fest in late September or is it in October?
Yeah, it's late September. But not to dismiss it, but Respect came out in August, and you know, obviously, you know, you got to respect Jennifer Hudson's performance. You know, because that in a way jump started it all early. But now you'll get the. So it's one thing when you're early when you first talk about a film, and you can even go further than that. A small film called Coda, you know, and usually like when you're like that movie that comes out in June, July, August, no one gives you that much fanfare because they know there's a slew of films going to open up in the fall. And so now it's a question of, okay, you're liked, it's well received, you're placed in a pole position. And the question is, you know, it's like one of these races, like, can you carry all the way through to February of next year? It's hard, you know. I can't recall, with the exception of maybe last year's Nomadland, you know, it's always topsy-turvy about like, oh, who's got the better performance, who's gonna start the buzz. And so right now, as you mentioned, Telluride has started yesterday, and buzz is coming out for Will Smith's movie, King Richard, in which he plays Richard Williams, the father of, you know, legendary stars, you know, Venus and Serena, and you know, the start of their career and what he did to get them noticed. You know, it's a performance of Will Smith that we haven't seen, I would say, before, because he's been nominated for an Oscar for playing Muhammad Ali, and he played Christopher. I'm not sure, maybe it was Williams or something like that.
About in the
Pursuit of
Happiness.
So
yeah,
yeah,
it wasn't Williams. But
it was
yeah,
Christopher. So basically, he's playing historical characters, you know,
right.
And this one seems to be a film that pleases all. It's even though it's Will Smith from beginning to end, but you have a great supporting cast with Anjanou Ellis and, you know, the girls that play Venus and Serena. And you've got, you know, behind the scenes craftsmen, from the composer to cinematography. So it's a little early to talk about it because you guys haven't seen it yet. So we can go further later on when it comes out in November, you know, but it's the start.
Well, the comment I made to Wilson and also to our team at the Black Reel Awards is that it's interesting that Will Smith has been nominated for an Oscar once, and he's been nominated
twice.
by us twice. He's had 2 Oscar nominations. Right. He's got 7 Black Reel Award nominations, and he's never won either, right? And as it relates to us, his stumbling block is always Denzel Washington. So every year, Will Smith has a really good performance. Denzel Washington does too. And it looks like this year will be no different because the tragedy in Macbeth, which Wilson will see later on this month, is going to be the huge elephant in the room. And Wilson hasn't seen it yet, so we don't know whether, but it's Denzel Washington, man. And
yeah, well, when you get a movie from Denzel, remember, Denzel's got, not only is he starring in the tragedy of Macbeth opposite recent 3-time winner, Frances McDormand. It's directed by her husband, Joe Cohen, you know, who we've known, but this is his first time by himself. Normally it's the Coen brothers, right? You know, so if there's any weak moment, you're gonna say like, okay, it's him by himself. His brother's not with him, but it's Macbeth. You say, and you know, and Lady Macbeth is one of all the Shakespeare female characters. Lady Macbeth is right up there. And you know what Frances can deliver, you know, so it's like golf, you know, all you have to do is play par, you're in the race. You say, you know, but we'll see. Like, hey, Shakespeare, sometimes it's like, we've seen other adaptations. Remember, the last Macbeth adaptation starred Michael, what's his last name? It was Michael Fassbender.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Michael Fassbender.
Michael Fassbender. Where has he been?
You know what I'm saying? But nevertheless, he starred in Macbeth. It was a different take. And it did not merit any. It did not merit any awards consideration. And he was on the up at that time. So while Denzel is Denzel, and we still can't, and on paper it looks amazing. We just gotta seriously, on paper it looks amazing. Because here's the thing about Shakespeare.
I'm laughing, Charles. Wilson is trying to spin it. It's Denzel Washington, man. Stop it. It's Denzel Washington. Denzel is notoriously okay. I've counted in my lifetime 5 bad Denzel Washington films in 40 years. He doesn't make a lot of bad movies, man. He doesn't.
The last one he did.
Well.
The last one he did. The last film he did was not talked about.
Which one?
The Things You Do or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about that one.
Look, you notice we totally forgot that. But I was like, oh yeah, that. Yeah.
We still talking about that other one where the last one he got nominated for.
Well, hey man.
But it seems like every time. It seems like every time Will does something, Denzel's like, hold my beer.
Look, I got concussion coming out, Denzel. Oh, really?
Keep in mind that Denzel, I live in New York City. So Denzel did Julius Caesar before he did Fences. And when he did Julius Caesar's, he got torn to pieces by the theater critics, saying that he did not handle Shakespeare well. His other castmates got recognized. I think one of them got a nomination, but Denzel, they tore him to shreds. He obviously came back and did Fences and got the Tony for Best Actor. But people in New York remember he wasn't good at Julius Caesar, so they're gonna always hold reservation because he's playing Shakespeare and he did it for he boldly did it. But it's still Denzel. So you're going to always give him, much more appeasement until until you see it. So nevertheless, you got Denzel, you've got Will, you've got movies like The Power of the Dog.
Don't be trying to do my job, man. Don't get in front of the preview. Let me do this.
All right. Do you think?
All right. So since we're talking about this, let's start off with the film that is getting all the buzz in Telluride. Wilson, in full, if we're going to be transparent, Wilson has seen it. So Wilson, I don't want you to review the film. We just want to talk about it. King Richard, which drops on November 19th, tells the story of Richard Williams, whose relentless motivation and pressure on his daughters, Venus and Serena, helped guide them from Compton to tennis superstardom. Will Smith, Aunjanue Ellis, who I love dearly, star in this movie. Wilson, without giving up anything about the film, man. Preview or talk about what this film, we all know who Richard Williams is. We've looked at the success of both Venus and Serena Williams. It's a biopic. I'm not sure because I haven't seen it yet. Every time I see a biopic,
it's not necessarily a biopic, because usually when people misconstrue biopic as cradle to grave or so forth, or a large segment. This is a piece of their history.
A slice of life.
A slice of life, a slice of their history. Not entirely, you can do follow-ups down the road, which is always the better play, because when you do from cradle to grave, and if it's such an important figure, there's always going to be sections missing, that people are going to argue, well, you didn't talk about this, you didn't talk about that, and unless it's a well-rounded figure, it's too much to do. We've seen it recently with the Respect movie, which thankfully doesn't go into Aretha's full life, because there's always going to be well, you didn't include this part or that part. So when you take a certain slice of life, you're better off in that position. And so that's what King Richard is. And as I mentioned before, and it was announced today that the end song credit is sung by none other than Beyonce. So when you've got that much of a heavyweight as your end credit song, you're gonna leave when when the screen goes dark, not during the credits. Because it's Beyonce. She rarely gives end credit songs, as opposed to just a song in the movie. You know, so
Right.
that's how big they're going big, and they're going home with it.
All right. Well, okay. So next up, I want to talk about a film from Paul Schrader, which actually is going to open in theaters next week. And of course, that's The Card Counter. Oscar Isaac plays William Tell, a genius poker player trying to outrun to trauma absorbed from a military interrogation. It also co-stars Willem Dafoe. Last time we saw Oscar Isaacs, what was the name? Was that a Coens Brothers film that he did? Was about him being a folk singer several years ago? I might be wrong with the director, but I do remember. I don't remember the title of it, but that was the last film that I saw Oscar Isaac, because he had that film and the other one with Jessica Chastain, where he played a failed businessman. I hate that I don't have these titles, but you guys have watched both these movies. Where he played a folk singer. Nobody remembers Oscar Isaac as a folk singer?
Yes, it was definitely from
Bob Dylan-esque kind of a performance he gave.
Yeah, Oscar, here's the thing. Oscar's been working a long time. He's the beauty of it is that when you do a lot of movies, you can't forget them. You say, I mean, you not forget them, but it's a lot of titles that he does. So it's one thing if you rarely work and so forth. But Oscar Isaac right now, not only is he in The Card Counter, but he's also in Dune, and he's going to be starring with Jessica Chastain in an HBO series. So he's got a lot of projects this year.
He absolutely does. He absolutely does. Oh, Inside Llewellyn Davis was the folk singer film, and the most violent year, and both of those, that was 2014. Wow.
Yeah, those things a long time ago, man.
No, I'm just saying that, but I was saying that's the last time that Oscar Isaacs was in the awards buzz early on. So that was like 7 years ago. Wow. I'm saying it was a couple of years ago, man. So, okay, so you got that. Wilson, of course, has already tipped off, and we might as well hit it. Dune, which is based on Frank Herbert's 1965 novel, has long been considered a masterpiece of science fiction. Creating a successful movie adaptation has proved elusive. We're taking another swing at this with Denis Villeneuve, who just did Blade Runner 2049 and has done a host of other really, really strong films. This film has been talked about and anticipated for a minute by people. I remember seeing a trailer of this either late last year or early this year. Talk to me about Dune. I must admit, going in, I've never seen it. Had an original one in the 80s. Am I correct?
Yes, 1984.
Yeah, I never saw it.
Critically panned, but it's considered a cult classic down the road. And that's been the case with a lot of movies. This current Dune, if you know Denny's work with what he's done with Blade Runner 2040, I believe it was, and Arrival 2049, Arrival, Prisoners, he layers out the film. He's never going to give you an ABC commercial film. What's on it. Some stories are simple as it is, but he layers it out. He gives it some time. And with Dune is slated to be the first of hopefully 2 or 3 films. So you're not getting the full context. If you saw the 84 version, you got it all. And one of the reasons it was panned is because it's too, they try to condense a large book, and they missed out certain elements. And so with this, he tries to respect the book and give you as much, context to it. A lot of exposition shots, and so forth. And like I said, you guys haven't seen it, so I'm never going to say masterpiece regarding a film. Some people have already called it that. I'm like, wait a minute. A film can be labeled a masterpiece within time, once people have seen it, because so many times people have said movies, because they want to, get the glory, get the quotes and so forth. But then you see it and it's like, okay. And people go in there with heavy expectations. It's like, no, this movie is initially for the diehard sci-fi fans who want to see justice be corrected. This is, with the cast that's involved in this movie, a lot of the who's hot right now actors, Timothée Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, Oscar Isaac, Josh Brolin, Jason Momoa, Zendaya, The list
Don't
goes
forget Dave
on and on.
Bautista.
Yeah, Dave Bautista. You know, they all have projects that've been hot within the last 2-3 years. So on cast alone, you're like, I'm there. You know, and so buzz has been great coming out of the festivals. But sometimes, you know, these festival movies, they get the good buzz. It's a starter to help you hopefully see it in theaters. And then generally, sometimes some movies don't carry the same weight once a lot more people see it. You know, people sometimes want to be the first to be say, "Oh, I saw it. It's great." Boom, 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 and get retweeted and so forth through social media. And others is like, I'm a reserved judgment. You know, till I see it, till I've had time. I do say it is definitely worth seeing in theaters. You do not want to see this on HBO Max. That is the one thing I would say. You know, Denny filmed this certain sections, you know, using Christopher Nolan's technique, IMAX style, you know, and you want to see it. There's a lot in there. Movies that have the cinematography element of that status deserve, no matter, you could have a 70-inch TV in your house. You need to see this on a big screen, you know, to enjoy it.
All right, so let's move on, man. We got a lot of movies, but go ahead.
Let me just jump in right quick on this, because Wilson said something that's very important, is that he did not try to make the whole movie in this one film, which is a big positive for a lot of people who love this book and love the story that goes on here. So hopefully this may be the one time that this Dune is successful.
All right, so moving on, man, to our next film. And I really wanted to bring this up because there's several films I want to make sure we talk about. But November the 24th, man, Lady Gaga is trying to get another Oscar. I've seen the trailer for The House of Gucci. It has the look. You're talking about her with Adam Driver, Ridley Scott directing, Jared Leto in the cast. Man, am I the only person excited to see House of Gucci?
Here's the thing, and I want to leave it at this. You know, we earlier talked about Denzel's film that was not well received, well liked, and going in there, we said Denzel, Jared Leto, and who's the other guy that won the Oscar for Bohemian Rhapsody?
Rami Malek.
Thank you.
Rami Malek. And you're like, oh, okay, because we know what each one of them brings to the screen. You know, so like we're getting a lot of these movies that were held from 2020, you know, that's ready to come out now. And, you know, and granted, you know, they test run a lot of these trailers before they release it to the world to know which one's going to pop, which one's going to buzz. And so, you know, while it gives you initial interest, because it's usually, you don't really get 8 times out of 10, you're not going to say the trailer looks bad. You know, 8 times out of 10, you're going to say, okay, I've seen it. I'm interested. Let's check it out. And then let's see what happens. You know, like I try to be like reserved in all this because it's very easy to get caught up in this. We don't know what's going to be the film that comes out of nowhere. That's like, oh, you know what? This could be it. You know, that's just a sleeper. And remember, even last year, you think about it, you know, you look at Andrew Day's performance, you know, going in, you're like, oh, Lee Daniels movie. And then you saw Andrew Day's performance and you're like, oh, nominee. No one talked about Vanessa Kirby until she went to Venice with that movie. And then Netflix picked it up. You know, so we don't know what's going to be the sleeper this year. And there's always bigger names that are in the picture. There are Oscar bait that don't hold up. So I try to reserve, like, okay, let's wait and see it. I've seen a few things, but, you know, only time will tell. But the good thing about this year's Oscar race, you didn't mention it, is that this year's you're going to get a guaranteed 10 pictures.
Well, all that Wilson just said was basically, I'm not getting excited until I see the movie. That was basically the whole thing Wilson just said. I'm not getting excited until I see the movie, which I mean, I can respect that. I mean, but I'm just saying that, you know, this time of year, when we talk about the fall and we're doing this preview, we're always looking at the films that have these heavily hyped stars in them, and or heavily concept films, I should say, that, and then when you put those two together, it builds a level of anticipation. But to Wilson's point, and I'm teasing you, but you're absolutely correct. You do have to learn how to kind of modulate your excitement level, because if you get too hyped, then you run into a problem that a lot of people talk about. These movies are being very disappointing because you've overhyped them. Like, for instance, we talked about Denzel's film with Jared Leto and Rami Malek earlier this year, which was a disappointment. I'll just say that. So, Charles, did you have anything to say before we moved on to the next movie?
No. Not about House of Gucci, because I'm not interested. Maybe when the trailers start coming out and they start promoting it more. But right now, big deal.
Well, this next movie is a movie that both Wilson and I are excited about because he posted a ton of images on it, and so did I. Coming in theaters on October 22nd and on Netflix November the 3rd. A quartet of all cowboys during America's peak were African American. Their history has been ignored, but in the heart of their fall, Netflix is investigating or delving back into Western lore with Regina King, Idris Elba, and Jonathan Majors. Trailer for this looks really, really good. Regina King's role doesn't appear to be, well, I don't know. From what I'm gathering, it looks really good on the surface. And James Samuels made a film that debuted at Urban World, I want to say 2012. They Die by Night, that had Erykah Badu and a bunch of other folks. So when I saw this, I was like, okay, I see what he's doing. This is a genre that James Samuels has been in. Wilson, I think you saw it too at Urban World. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, some of the characters in that are the black cowboys
in this.
Yeah. So he wants to, if it's up to him, he wants to make sure every black cowboy that ever existed. It's like he was like, it didn't work with that one. I got the money now. I got the budget to get the bigger names. I'm gonna make you remember this.
Well, he had big names for 2012. I mean, I think he had Erykah Badu. He had I'm trying to remember because he had a couple of names.
Well, he had big names, but not the type that would say, not the type that will get like an all film audiences to check it out. No, with no disrespect to Erykah Badu,
Michael K. Williams was in They Die by Night.
He was just starting out.
But we're talking about now Regina King, Idris Elba. These are names that people are going to like.
He's got names right now.
Yeah.
He had names before. He took it on another level now.
He got names now.
He's like
Majors is hot right now.
Yeah, he went from D League to A League. You say.
Yeah, so that's a good one, man. So I'm definitely now. The thing that's interesting, you notice I said it's in theaters on October 22nd. I guess it's going to play in theaters for 2 weeks before it hits Netflix. So I guess that's Netflix's window that they're doing for their awards.
What's interesting is I don't know anybody that told me they've seen a Netflix movie in theaters.
I'm sorry. One. Have you met one?
I've not met one. So it's like when you do this big push, it's like you say to yourself, "I've got Netflix. Why would I hate to say it, but why would I spend $30, for 2 tickets
when I can wait 2 weeks and watch it for free?
When it's free for everybody that can see it 3, 4, 5 times." You say,
Wilson, stop, man. Netflix is a partial sponsor of the
show.
Go out to those theaters and see that Netflix content.
You already know what the deal is. They want this for Oscar consideration. They did it with Roma, so that's why they're doing it. It doesn't matter whether it makes money or not. It's just for the exposure.
We have to put it in theaters for a certain amount of days to get it qualified.
In the words of Tony Montana, political.
Big time. Speaking of political, for all the fans of The Sopranos, if you haven't seen The Sopranos in a while, before October the 1st, I think you're going to at least want to watch episode or season 7 because the Many Saints of Newark is coming out. And this is the prequel that starts in the 1970s with a teenage Tony Soprano and his uncle Dickie Moltisanti. If you watch the show, Michael Gandolfini will play his father in this film. Wilson, I know you were a Sopranos fan. I can't speak for Charles. Many Saints of Newark, man, does this thing have any chance of getting past just the cult audience of people who like that show?
Maybe, like I said, you've got Maybe, you know, I think.
Look at Charles's face.
Well, then again, here's the thing. It's
No.
no different. It's no different than Dune. You know, for people who may not have seen Dune, the lore of the actors may bring you in this, and you'll figure it out. Now, because this is a series, you know, and Sopranos lasted long enough, and it was well received, and it won Emmys. You may get that core audience, and then people may see it afterwards, or you may introduce a new audience to seeing this because it's a, you know, what you're getting is a young Tony Soprano, a young Silvio Dante. But there's a storyline in there that doesn't really involve these characters, and then involved in that is recent Oscar nominee Leslie Odom Jr. You know, and so like afterwards, either people will watch it on HBO Max starting with season 1 of The Sopranos, or you know, so like I would say 80% is going to be for the core audience, 20% will be for a new audience.
All righty, and
all I can say is,
go ahead. I love Charles. So go ahead.
Sex in the City, Entourage. What are you telling me? What are you telling me?
Well, Sex in the City did very well, as we know. You know, Entourage. I don't know what the budget was on that, but no one's talking about that. You know, so we don't know. And obviously, in this pandemic era, you know, nobody's doing well second week, you know, at the box office. So it's about opening weekend and see what they do. And if not, people can watch on HBO Max.
All right. Well, speaking of when we talk about streaming services, here we go again. October 27th in theaters, on Netflix, November the 10th, is a film that debuted at Sundance and has played in several festivals successfully, is Passing. Tessa Thompson, Ruth Negga, Andre Holland, Bill Camp, and Alexander Skarsgård in the film directed by Wilson's favorite new director, Rebecca Hall, based on a 1929 novella by Nell Larson of the same name, which is this is an intricate look at identity through two childhood friends, Claire Kendry, played by Negga, and Irene Redfeld, played by Tessa Thompson. I haven't had a chance to see this one either. I've heard mostly positive things about Passing. Netflix is taking a swing at putting it up for awards consideration this year. Charles, what are you feeling about Passing?
Well, I think it's a strong. It has the potential to be strong. Tessa Thompson is a big name, and you know, even with the recent news of what's going on with her and Taika Waititi and Rita Ora, if you haven't seen that, it's a big thing that's going on with them in Disney. But she's hot, and so this is supposed to be, you know, another opportunity to show what she can do. And I think that it's probably going to be pretty interesting. I'm kind of scared that they're doing the same thing with a movie release and then a Netflix release, because that means Netflix is going to be pushing 2 movies for Oscar consideration. I don't know. We'll see.
Wilson?
Here's the funny thing. So you say Netflix is going to be pushing 2. They push 6 or 7 every year.
They push 7 every year, man.
It's like it would be Netflix. They got like that's surprising. Sometimes Charles is like I say to myself, like, what is Charles doing here?
No. Successfully push. They've only ever successfully pushed one film to an Oscar.
Bro. Last year they pushed Ma Rainey. They pushed what was the other? They pushed a bunch of films last year.
They pushed
Close, Hillbilly LG. They pushed a bunch of films.
They pushed.
And what did they win? And what did they win?
No, Charles. We're not having a conversation about what they win. Wilson.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Is
you only have X amount of people that can be nominated and can win, but studios push routinely 5, 6, 7 projects a year. Routine.
Here's the thing. At the end of the day, it's all about visibility. It's about like, you know, now that the Academy has also said no more DVDs, you know, everything is going to be streaming. So either you can, and because of the Delta variant, the question is, can you get any of these older Oscar voters to come into the theaters? And just talking to a few people, and I don't have much time left, but just to say, like, a lot of them had some challenges in trying to stream on their TV, you know, whereas everybody has Netflix. You know, a majority of people have, I would say everybody, in terms of all of the streaming apps, more people have Netflix than anything else.
That's true.
So they can watch it there. You know, other apps are new, and they're like, what am I doing? I don't want to watch it on my computer or on my phone. How do I cast it? You know, so visibility is important. And Netflix, remember, they still have the Don't Look Up film that's directed by Adam McKay. You know, that's coming up. They're with Leonardo DiCaprio. They've got The Power of the Dog, James Campion. They've got Hand of God, Paolo Sorrento. You know,
all right, well,
the
stop.
movies.
And they also have Bruised, which is Halle Berry's film, which is another film that Netflix is releasing in the theaters for a week, and it's going to Netflix. I think it's the 17th it's going to theaters, and then the 24th it'll be on Netflix. So much to Charles' chagrin, I'm just telling you, Netflix is going to be a major player. They have a lot of movies that they're pushing, and to Wilson's point, since there is the Delta variant, I don't think they're going to be booking travel the way they normally would do, but they do junkets for these films. And they understand the power of getting their stars and their films out in front of people, much in the same way that all the other studios have been doing for decades.
Yes.
So nothing on that? Nothing? That's that. Y'all just going to leave me hanging with that?
No, I'm just saying you're right. You know,
You're right. You're right. You're
a lot
right.
of the films they have, remember, they're releasing it, you know, with movies like The Power of the Dog and The Hand of God. These are not movies that spell box office. These are small movies directed by received directors. Jane Campion is not somebody that like, oh, I'm gonna, you know, she's not, you know, she does small film, but obviously she did The Piano 20 plus years ago and what was received, you know, and Paolo Sorrento is already an Oscar winner. I forgot what foreign film.
Oh my God, I love that movie. I know exactly what you're talking about.
But nevertheless, you know, these are runs that they're gonna have, and when you look to see what the studios have, Paramount, you know, they're pushing everything to like next year, you know, because they're like
Great Beauty.
Either they farmed it off to somebody else, or they're like, we're trying to make money, and we don't think we're gonna make money with the state is now, so we're pushing it back to next year. You still got Amazon with films. You've got, you know, Hulu coming out with stuff, you know, so like people are really taking, you know, the streaming platform business seriously, because at the end of the day, as a director and as a producer, as much as you want to make money, you still want to get notice about your film.
Right. Now, several years ago, Halle Berry did a film that many of you probably forgot called The Call, where she played a 911 operator who was trying to save a woman from being abducted, or a little girl from being abducted. Strangely enough, there's a film coming out in October directed by Antoine Fuqua that literally does the exact same thing. It's called The Guilty. This time it's Jake Gyllenhaal. Fuqua directs in a story of a 911 operator attempting to assist a victim who's been abducted. You know, again, we talk about film and storytelling all the time. These stories are all the same, or variations of the same story. This one feels very familiar. I do know that Antoine Fuqua's films usually are very testosterone laden events, and with Jake Gyllenhaal and him reuniting again, I think they both did. Was it Gyllenhaal and Southpaw? Am I correct?
Yes.
So so this is a guy that he likes working with, and he hopes that this film can do more than just kind of put more money and more awards consideration on Fuqua's name.
I don't know. I'll be seeing it soon because it's it's going to premiere at Toronto. Okay. So, you know, you never know what Antoine Fuqua. Obviously, 20 years ago, he did Training Day. Nobody saw it come in until they saw it. You know, and while we talk about Denzel, but he also got a nomination for Ethan Hawke. You know, so like Antoine Fuqua, you know, you never know. Like I said, I keep talking about who's going to be the surprise this year that comes out of these movies. And we know since he's already gotten one nomination, or, you know, nominations for two of his actors, he could do it again. We never know. So it's all about the execution, how well it's played. You know, I think even last year, I don't think Netflix did not know what they were going to do with The Five Bloods when they released it in July. But after the buzz that it's got, all of a sudden they threw it into the Oscars, another film that Netflix promoted. Sometimes you wonder, like when they start putting a movie out in July, you start saying to yourself, well, it's not one of Netflix's high hopes for an Oscar, because why release it so early? Knowing they've got like 5 more films down the road, but nevertheless, because of the buzz that they got, they gave it its due, all the buzz things. We got the books, the interviews and stuff like that. So this movie's coming out in October, so which means it could be in the race. Jake Gyllenhaal, I think he's been previously nominated. I think he got nominated for Brokeback Mountain.
Yeah.
So time will tell.
All right, well, Wilson, you got a dash, and
Yes.
And there's so many movies, man. We didn't even talk about James Bond, and we didn't. I mean, there was some obvious films that we didn't talk about because they're obvious.
And you really can't do all of it because not in a full hour, because you want to give some films a little bit more due. You've got James Bond, you've got, but then again, as movies are moving out of 2021, it's almost like, okay, we got to take this out the equation. James Bond is definitely coming out this year. It's October, I believe, 22nd.
Charles had his fingers crossed. The Tragedy of Macbeth, we didn't talk about that. I mean, that was, I mean, we kind of skirted around it, but there's so many movies, man, so many projects. I wanted to talk before you got out of here, Wilson, about Tom Hanks's film that's coming out. I think it's called Finch, where Hanks, a dog, and a robot all set across for a cross-country adventure. Tom Hanks, I've learned never to underestimate him, because I've seen some films with the concepts that look crazy, and then it's Tom Hanks. Hanks does what Hanks does. I mean, anybody, could this be a sleeper that nobody sees coming?
Oh, you never know. You could say it's 20 years later, it's Turner Hooch 2.0. You say, we don't know. When was the last time you saw a movie with a man and his animal, or Babe?
Man, an animal, and a robot. Don't forget the robot.
All you can think about is Babe. You say, so we don't know. But Tom Hanks, Tom Hanks is one of those guys that's like, he's won twice, but should have been nominated a lot more times. And so like he's always going to give you something good. The question is it good enough? I
love the fact that we're just going to do the show and there's a shooting in Wilson's neighborhood and he's just ignoring it as the ambulance keeps riding by.
This is New York City, boy. I don't know about it. In New York, there's nowhere in New York where you can hear sirens. They got that siren up to like the nth degree. You may be in Chicago and be like, we don't hear it.
Wilson, get on out of here, man, and do what you do, man. Me and Charles are going to hit these movies, man. But thank you for contributing on this fall movie preview. Like you said, you couldn't get them all.
Can't get them all. Until the next time, we'll talk later.
Take care, sir.
All right.
So Charles Kirkland, man, we got 2 theaters. I mean, two movies in theaters.
Before you go too far, I want to say this about Jake Gyllenhaal. I think he's one of the most underappreciated actors of our time. The work that he does has always been stellar. I really think he should have been nominated for Nightcrawler. But so when he's working together with Fuqua again, I'm thinking that this might be another chance for him to get something that's kind of positive that he can flex his muscles and be powerful in. So I'm looking forward to that film. I didn't get the chance to say that before, but go ahead.
No, I got you, man. So the thing that Wilson brought up, which he's right, I forgot to talk about that, and we will talk about it incessantly in the months leading up to while we're getting up to award season, is that this year they've guaranteed that they're going to be 10 films nominated for Best Picture this year, which is going to be interesting because I have a strange feeling that they're going to be probably the lion's share of them are going to be really strong, and then they're going to sneak a couple in there that under ordinary conditions wouldn't have made it. So I'm already prepared, like, that got nominated for Best Picture?
Yeah, this might be the first year where we get like, really? What are they thinking?
Hey, man.
Every year it's like, why didn't they? And this year will be like, why did they?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, man. So I just want to do a quick pivot. We got 2 movies that we need to talk about. And the first one, since I know how much you enjoyed this movie, and I had a chance to watch it a couple of nights ago, was Cinderella, directed by Kay Cannon. This is the latest adaptation. This is the first Cinderella film, and if I'm incorrect, tell me, Charles. Since 1997's Cinderella, that had Whitney Houston as the fairy godmother, and it starred Brandy in the title role of Cinderella. This one is star singer Camilla Cabello in the title
Cabello.
role. Huh?
Cabello.
Cabello, thank you. Billy Porter plays the fabulous G. Adina Menzel from Frozen is in this, along with James Corden, Minnie Driver, Pierce Brosnan. Did you get a chance to see Cinderella?
Yeah, I watched it. And to clarify, there was a Cinderella that was done by Lily James and Kate Blanchett in 2015. So,
Okay. Yeah,
I mean, it happens. We got the Cinderella
I
story.
said correct me if I'm wrong, so I was wrong.
So, I mean, how many times are we going to go down this road with Cinderella? I was surprised.
Hey! Before, hey, it's Disney.
A time
Watch
for
this.
every age, right?
We have to do it for every generation. So this latest one, I called Charles up when I was watching it. It reminded me, I think, what Kay Cannon did, and like I said earlier to Wilson, that every film, every adaptation, every biopic is done in certain styles because we pick the style that people have been successful with. And there was a movie called Moulin Rouge. Remember that?
Yeah.
Moulin Rouge took an old story and put a lot of pop tunes in it and mashed them up together and gave you a successful film. And I think Canon is doing the Moulin Rouge model of Cinderella. When a film starts off with Rhythm Nation, I was like, is that?
And it mashes it together with You Gotta Be.
Later on, there are mashups with Earth, Wind, and Fire. I think there's a Beatle mashup. They mash up a bunch of stuff in this film. And I'll just say very, very shortly and succinctly that I've seen people have seen Cinderella so many times. There's really nothing new you could bring to Cinderella other than the style. Basic story. Watch this. I got my eyes closed. Young girl has a horrible stepmother and two spoiled stepsisters. Nobody sees her. She's very talented and beautiful. And she goes to a ball, meets a prince. Prince and her hang out. She has to get back because her costume is falling apart from her fairy godmother, or fabulous G in this case. She leaves a slipper behind. He hunts for the slipper. Whoever has it becomes his bride. End of story. End scene. It's the same Cinderella story. So I don't know how much more I can add other than to do what I did at the beginning, which was to talk about the style of what they tried to do with this version of Cinderella. Charles, what do you think, man?
You said Moulin Rouge. To me, I thought it was more Kay Cannon's Pitch Perfect, because in all her Pitch Perfects, she does those mashups when the groups are singing. So I kind of felt it was the same direction that she's been going in the past.
After Moulin Rouge. That's all I'm saying, man. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm saying,
yeah. So I mean, hey, you got Billy Porter being the fabulous godmother. Everything is spun for the age that we're in, and so it is what it is. It's it's a little bit of eye candy, maybe. I mean, it is pleasing to look at, but it's
B-
not anything that's going to satisfy you.
B-, C+.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
Yeah, I gave it a straight C.
B- C+ for me. I mean, I like the songs. I like Pierce Brosnan. I like Minnie Driver. Yeah, it is what it is. All right, so we'll move to the big release this week, which is is this film 25 in the Marvel Cinematic Universe now?
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about Worth.
No. I didn't get a chance to see Worth. Worth is I'm going to say Worth because despite the fact that it's on Netflix this week, it's about 9/11. So I wanted to talk about it next week when we're closer to 9/11. So I'm doing
smart. Okay.
Yeah, I'm doing that intentionally. I would never tell Netflix how to program, but I'm thinking if you're making a movie about 9/11 and 9/11 is the 20th anniversary, release it on the 10th, which gets it as a talking point on the 11th. Never mind. Anyway, I was not purposely going to talk about Worth, but thank you, Charles, because I started to bring that up in the movie preview, but I was like, man, let it go. Let's talk about the 25th entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and you can look that up and see if I'm wrong or not, but I think I'm right because I think they talk about Black Widow being 24. This is Shang Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. And I'll say I saw this movie several weeks ago and could not wait for us to talk about this movie. I love when Marvel, even in phase 4 now, as they're introducing new potential stars or new Avengers or new folks into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Here's a story of a kid who comes from a very kind of interesting beginning, which is explored in the film. He is kind of living his life as we meet him in the film as a valet parking cars at a hotel with his good friend played by Awkwafina. When he discovers his destiny that's been hidden all this time. This mythical land, which sort of reminded me of Wakanda, an Asian Wakanda. This mythical martial arts background, this whole backstory. I loved everything about this movie, man. I mean, I love the storytelling of Kevin Feige and his amazing team at Marvel. And this one did not let me down at all. I felt a lot, and I keep saying Black Panther because Black Panther was a departure in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that really kind of looked at African culture and saluted African culture. I feel that this film does the same thing with Asian culture, and it's a beautiful film to look at. I like the story. I think there's some elements and some co-stars because in every MCU film, especially the ones when we're introducing a new character, there's usually always a thread associated with somebody who's currently in the MCU to help us to give us the connective tissue to tie these things together. And they do a really good job because when I first saw the character, I'm like, why would he be in this movie? And then I said, okay, later on, when you get to the end of the film, now it makes sense on why the suits at Marvel introduced the character. Shang-Chi is a lot of fun. It also stars a woman who I've loved a lot. What is her name from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon?
Yo.
Yes. Love watching almost anything she's in. And the fact that
Michelle,
is it Yao? Yo?
I say yo. I don't.
Michelle Yao? Okay.
I say yo. Yeah.
Yeah. So having her in this film, I think almost kind of, I don't want to say stamps it, but I guess it does stamp it in a way that it feels very authentic because she was also in Crazy Rich Asians, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So when you see her show up in a film, whether it's martial arts or a film about the culture, 9 times out of 10, that this film is now official. So to me, it's official. And I think that this film is an exciting inclusion into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Only playing in theaters, Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings. I'm going to sneak out at some point today and get to the theaters because I got to see this thing again on the big screen. It's a big screen spectacular. I say all these Marvel films, you got to see them on the big screen. You really need to see this one. I gave this film a strong B+. I like this movie a whole lot. Charles, what did you think, man?
Well, I told you before we got started that I'm heading to the largest theater screen in the United States. It's a drive-in just outside of Baltimore, and they're playing this film as a part of their triple play for the night. And because, I mean, this is thank you, Scarlett, for suing, but this movie just needed to be on the big screen, not on Disney Plus, not on somebody's computer phone. It needed to be seen on the big screen. We talked, Wilson talked about films like this before. I don't think it was shot in IMAX, but the everything goes from all parts of the screen. If you got a little screen, you're missing something. You have to see it in the big screen. And I think this is Feige's actual saying, we've got the balls to create a story, because this story that's in this movie is not the story of Shang-Chi from the comic books. This is not the story of how he came up in the comic books. This is something that they've created just for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it works. It's almost perfect from beginning to end. I do have a problem with a small part of the film.
Yeah, man, talk about that, man, because I read that in your review. Go ahead. What was this small thing you had?
Okay, so Ben Kingsley is in the film reprising his role as Trevor Slattery, who we were introduced to in Iron Man 2, who pretended to be the Mandarin, and Shang-Chi's father is the actual Mandarin, and they bring his character into this film, and I really think that he serves no purpose whatsoever. I mean,
comic relief.
Even the comic relief isn't that great for the film. I really think it's an unnecessary point that they included in the film. They could have done just fine without having him there. And I'm trying to understand why they feel like they have to. In Black Panther, we had Martin Freeman's character who got inserted in as the token white guy, and so here we have Trevor Slattery as the token white guy in this story. It's not necessary. Just go ahead and dive into the Asian culture and just be good at the Asian representation that you had already started. Finish it out. So that was the one problem I had with the film.
Let me jump in, because you're making a really good point, which is why I wanted you to talk about this. For years, we used to have the token African American that would be in films, and I think part of why it was done when it was the token Black person was to show that we're trying to be diverse. You know, we got one's in here. I think in the tokenism of how it's being reversed, and at least this is my interpretation. My interpretation is that there's still areas of Hollywood right now that if we put all Black people on screen or all Asian people on screen, they think that it doesn't open up the door for everybody to watch it. Now, the difference in Marvel is that Marvel's universe is so expansive that people are going to go watch Marvel movies, whether you put the token white person or the token minority in the film or not. They're going to be in there. And I think that's a lesson that Marvel still hasn't learned yet, because you're right, Martin Freeman, other than him being the connective tissue, again, I told you that was the only reason why you didn't necessarily need him. You had Ulysses Claw that you could have put in Black Panther, and you would have been fine without Martin Freeman. What you probably will, to your point, you'd probably be fine without Ben Kingsley in this film. There was nothing for him to do other than provide some levels of comedy and to be the connective tissue to an earlier story that happened in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So maybe, Charles, instead of looking at it as the token white guy that's in there, maybe what we should do is readjust our perspective to say, they're trying to have us connect with some piece of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in this story that they're telling us right now. So I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I'm trying to look at it a different way, because nothing else makes any sense. Like, you don't need to put these characters in these movies just because of their skin tone. You need to put them in there because they serve a purpose of connecting us from one story to the other. And I was correct when I said this is the 25th Marvel Cinematic Universe film. And to me, all of this stuff is a quilt. So if you took every Marvel film and stitched them together in a quilt, all of these stories aren't the strongest. Some of them are really well done, some of them not so much. But if you take that quilt and wrap it around you, you have the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you know, in a nutshell. It's an amazing universe that they built. And it's intriguing. There are different highlights in different parts of the universe that make it really work.
I think I agree to some extent with your devil's advocate position that you took on for Marvel, but they had already had the inclusion of the 10 rings in Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2. They really didn't have to have that connective tissue, but I understand what you're saying.
Well, but they brought back, it's funny you would say Iron Man 2 because the Mandarin was in Iron Man. Was that Iron Man 2?
Yeah.
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 So we go back.
Oh, no. Iron Man 3, my bad. Iron Man 3.
No. But to your point, you're still correct. And then we think about Black Widow, and the connective tissue there was General Ross, who we saw show up in The Incredible Hulk back in 2008, and he has been in some other Marvel films. But it's very smart how these guys are doing it. And when we get a ways away and we're getting ready for the Eternals, which are coming later this year, as well as Spider-Man's Far From Home, we will talk about the connective tissue in all of these movies. This week on, before we get out of here, this week on What If, we had episode 4, which was this really, really dark episode, which looked at what would happen if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands in the accident from his origin story. And in the multiverse, what that does. I think that has huge implications, along with some of the other stuff we've seen, huge implications going into phase 4 for where Marvel can go with these stories, whether it be live action, whether it be animation. It's just a really exciting time of what these guys have built on the small screen, on the big screen. Salute to Kevin Feige and his entire team. They're doing an amazing job, Charles.
I think this last one was the best one of all the series. It introduced something in the comics called an absolute point, which is very, very important for I think as we talk about the multiverse and other things as we go forward, that concept of an absolute point is very vital to the existence of what they're doing from here on out. And again, I think it was the best story that they've done so far.
Well, it's funny you would say that, because after I watched it, I went back to what I think is their second best story, the very end of Loki, where we meet He Who Remains, who talks about, if you think I'm bad, wait till you see my variants. Man, phase 4 is going to be nuts. If you thought phase 2 and 3, the build up to Thanos was good, wow. I think we got some really strong stuff coming down the pipe from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and we didn't even talk about the Eternals today. We'll have time. We got a couple of months. But Charles, man, it's Labor Day weekend, man. We're wrapping up. We're going to get out of here. We didn't give a grade to Shang-Chi. Did you give a grade? You said you gave it.
I didn't speak a grade, but it would be a B for me.
All right, I give it a B+. I really, really enjoyed that film a lot. And make sure you stay through the end credits, because two end credit scenes. You got to stay there, man. Watch all the credits. But as we tell you every week in leaving, please see something good at the movies. You got your marching orders, or you can stay home and watch and cheat and watch Worth. We'll talk about it next week, man. So it'll be homework for you. If you watch it this week, we'll discuss it next week. You guys, like I tell you, we see something good at the movies. And until next week, we'll see you guys on the other side. On behalf of Wilson Morales, Charles Kirkland, thank you guys. You take care and enjoy your holiday weekend. Take care.